Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling really the biggest economic story reshaping China right now, the property crisis. Our mission is to understand how we got from that initial Evergrande shock to something, well, much deeper, more structural.
And it's crucial to get the scale right from the start. This sector wasn't just big, it was, absolutely central. We're talking maybe 17% to some estimates go as high as 30% of China's entire GDP, direct and indirect impact.
30%, wow.
Yeah. And maybe even more critical for stability, about 70% of household wealth was tied up in property. Think of it as the main savings vehicle for ordinary Chinese families.
70%. Okay, so that level of reliance is just massive. How did things go so wrong? It wasn't just a market downturn, was it? There was a specific trigger.
Exactly. This wasn't really an accident, more like a deliberate policy intervention. Beijing saw a huge bubble forming.
The houses are for living, not for speculation idea.
Precisely. That principle led directly to the three red lines policy, introduced back in August 2020. The goal was deleveraging, a controlled cooling.
Okay, three red lines. Let's break that down. Why was it so effective, maybe too effective?
Because they weren't suggestions. They were hard quantitative limits on how much developers could borrow, very specific metrics.
Like what?
Things like your total liabilities couldn't be more than 70% of your assets. Your net debt shouldn't exceed your equity. And, crucially, you needed enough cash on hand to cover all your short-term debt, a ratio greater than 1.
Ah, okay. So if you were already heavily leveraged.
You were instantly cut off from new borrowing, no more increasing debt. It was like hitting a wall. It created an immediate liquidity chokehold, especially for companies that relied on constant debt refinancing like Evergrande. Pushed them right to the edge.
Which brings us to the Evergrande endgame. The Hong Kong liquidation order in January 24, the delisting. That felt final. But what did that collapse actually mean for the international investors holding billions in Evergrande bonds?
Yeah, this is where it gets pretty stark for global capital. Offshore creditors filed claims for around 45 billion US dollars.
Okay, 45 billion and the recovery.
The liquidators managed to recover about, wait for it, $255 million.
Million. With a B. 255 million from 45 billion.
Million with an M, yes. That works out to roughly half a cent on the dollar.
Half a cent. That's almost nothing.
It's basically a wipeout, and it sent a chilling message about cross-border enforcement.
Yeah.
Mainland China clearly prioritized finishing homes for domestic buyers, social stability over paying foreign bondholders.
It's a very clear signal about where priorities lie. And the contagion didn't stop there, right?
Right.
We saw Country Garden default later in 2023.
Right.
So moving beyond that initial shockwave, what are the longer-term, the structural consequences we're seeing now? What does this mean for you, the listener?
The damage is deep and wide. First, there's the massive wealth destruction. We mentioned 70% of wealth and property. Well, estimates suggest maybe $18 trillion of that wealth just vanished.
$18 trillion gone.
Yeah. And that leads straight to what economists call the paradox of thrift. People feel poorer, they get scared, so they stop spending. They save more, they pay down debt. That absolutely kills consumer demand across the whole economy.
So with demand hammered like that, what's Beijing doing? Are they trying to pump air back into the bubble?
Not really, no. Their focus now seems laser sharp on just stability. Preventing social unrest is key. Take the whitelist mechanism launched early in 2024. That's basically the government directing funds very specifically to ensure that pre-sold homes actually get finished and handed over. It's damage control, not stimulus.
Managing the landing, not trying to take off again. So what does the market look like going forward? Is it all doom and gloom?
It's becoming what you'd call a bifurcated market. Very different stories depending on where you look. Top-tier cities, your Shanghais, your Beijings, they're seeing some stabilization, maybe even small price gains in prime areas. But
the rest.
The lower-tier cities, which are the vast majority of the market, they face a really long, painful slump. Deep price corrections, probably not coming back anytime soon. The overall consensus is pretty clear. The property sector in China is going to be permanently smaller.
Right. So the big takeaway here seems unavoidable. The days of real estate driving China's spectacular growth, that whole engine, it's fundamentally over.
It's over. This is the long landing everyone's talking about. And for global investors, the strategic implication isn't just, don't buy Chinese property bonds anymore. It's about a fundamental repricing of risk in China altogether. You're going to see capital shift, likely moving away from debt-heavy sectors towards areas of exabyte. Beijing is prioritizing now things like advanced manufacturing, green tech, the digital economy. That shift, that reallocation, that's the new landscape you need to understand.